Okay, we're live, and my God, what trials and tribulation tonight, guys. We have been fighting with the audio and the video for the last hour, and I'm really sorry, I apologize. But thankfully, I think we've got it sorted, and I'm just doing some tests now. It's just been an absolute nightmare to try and get this thing working. I'm actually on my laptop now, which is why your view is slightly different. So hopefully that should be good. Okay, Ebony is still fighting her issues, guys, but we're going to try and press on. Tony and Bertram, welcome to what is an hour late, which is funny because the clocks went forward. Bertram just joined us and thought, okay, it's supposed to be 8 o'clock.
I'm right on time. Wow. I'm spotless in terms of my timing. Just when you're ready.
And Ebony looks like she's up and running. It looks like she's fixed her issues. My word, what a palaver.
Yes, I'm now my tablet.
Right, okay, so you're on your tablet. The guys have come back in the chat. Yep, we can hear you. Vincey, thanks for joining us because tonight's just been a complete and utter crap show with setting up the technical stuff. Coronavirus is not just about infecting humans, it is about also infecting technology. That we have definitely found today. My God, what a palaver to get it all sorted out. So listen, welcome everybody, and I hope everyone's doing well, and I hope you're all enjoying the content. I don't even know which mic to look in now. I think that's the one right there. Hope you're enjoying the content. It's really hard to get things to find out what to talk about. And for most of the time, it's been really covering the coronavirus and the numbers. And then I got some feedback from my wife, and I got some feedback from other people that it's just nice to discuss other things. And that's the reason why I haven't really talked about the death tolls and things like that over the last few days. I've just more talked about other stuff. So I hope that that's really working for you well. Let me just fix Ebony on here because I think she's come through again. Right, I've got to find out. Ebony, is that you? Yes, it is. Okay, yeah. She's live. She's kicking. All right, let's get rid of this one. Right, okay, good. So we're up and running. So overall, guys, it's been a telling week. Tony, how you doing? You all right, mate? Tony looks like he's frozen. Tony's still there. And Vince is saying, no stress, blame Boris. I'm finished. I'm finished.
Yes,
right. So listen, guys, what have you guys been spending your last week doing? Tony, let's start with you, mate. Let's start with you, Tony. How have you been handling the last week? Tony looks like he's struggling. Tony.
So how am I doing? I'm doing very well. Yeah. So I've been with my. So. I believe
got
you guys might be receiving.
Yeah, your audio's your audio's cutting out.
On that, basically, to be lagging everywhere. I believe at 8 o'clock. Everybody. So rise up. He's playing. I mean, his cousin at the same repercussion.
Right, so that's the reason why you haven't got smooth internet connection at the moment.
That's me. I mean, other than reset.
Excellent. Bertram, how have you been, man?
It's been a very challenging week.
Vince is saying that I'm frozen.
Yeah. Lagging slightly behind as well. Yeah, go on, Bertram. How have you been?
I'm doing well, actually.
Is that done me? Am I now in Vinci?
Hold on.
Oh, look.
Are you lagging, Tony? I think, is he lagging? Tony, can you hear me? Okay, yeah? He's really struggling with his internet connection. That's why we didn't see La African Guna today. He said in South Africa, all of the internet is just popping out all over the place. So, boy, some pure stress tonight, man, when it comes to technology. But yeah, Bertram, go ahead, mate. How have you been?
Well, I guess everyone is home and everyone has to entertain themselves via broadband. So I can imagine capacity is an issue, and we're all going to struggle for a while with this. My internet's supposed to be the highest speed that there's possible in the US, and I still struggle periodically. It's been a challenging week. Now I understand what it feels like to be incarcerated, except I'm seeing sunlight, because I've been home for the last 3 weeks, and I never want to get incarcerated, by the way. I've been home for never, not like that. For the last 3 weeks, and interestingly enough, I'm working from home for the last 3 weeks. So my company made a decision pretty early in the process to have us work from home, and it's been tough because I have 2 kids here who've been sick. They may have the virus, actually. I'm not sure if they do or not, but they've been quarantined for the last 2 weeks. But they have their phones. I'm not, so long as they have their phones, they're fine. But it's been tough and challenging just being cooped up in the house and going out once in a while in my mask and my gloves and well protected, trying to protect others versus protecting but at the same time protecting myself. So it's been a challenging week. And the numbers are sobering, actually. If you look across the globe, especially Italy, it's exact, the numbers are getting worse and worse every day. And I've said from day one, and I felt good when Bill Gates said the same thing more recently on CNN, which is you have to lock it down, like really lock it down, like we did Wuhan, to fix this. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't fix up, say New York should be locked down and you let Pennsylvania open, you lock down New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, and the surrounding states are open. People just cross the border. I just got a call from a friend of mine who basically told me she's leaving New York tonight to go to Georgia because New York's going to be locked down and she's afraid of her and the family getting infected. And a lot of people are doing that. And if people are doing that a lot across the board and they're taking the virus with them and transport it, then imagine where we're going to be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks from now. And lastly, I say this, which is a lot of people have not been tested. So my niece and nephew, I have the funds to get them tested.
Yeah.
I can't get them tested because they're not giving me a test. So imagine a lot of families who have the capability to get tested and the resources, but can't get tested. It's not a good situation. So.
Yeah, and the thing is, what's scary is you guys went from 90,000 one day to 102,000 one day, and today it's jumped to 125 or 24,000. So it's just mad. It's absolutely exploded. And apparently New York, New Jersey accounts for half of the amount infected.
It's not, to me, it's not exploded because I think the misconception is that these are the people who have the virus. No, these are people who have gotten tested. There's probably 10 times that of the virus who haven't been tested. Yeah. That's the fallacy in the argument, which around these numbers are legit. These numbers are what reflects the current environment. Nothing like that. Because I just went to the store, right? So here's an example. The person at the register is serving all these people. Sooner or later, she's going to encounter somebody who's infected. And a lot of times they're not wearing gloves or masks. So if that person get infected, whoever comes to that store will get infected, they go back to their family. Think about the exponential increase in the number of people going to get exposed. Not all may get infected, because obviously sneezing and coughing and whatever else are transported, human beings are transported. But you can see how that gets magnified, how that gets extrapolated to a huge number. So in my case, I think the number in the US is probably about 1 million, but if they say it's 100,000, fine for the time being, but we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, the UK government just came out and said 2 things today before I hand it over to Ebony. They made 2 claims today. They said we might be going for as long as 3 to 6 months. That was one claim. And the second claim was that I believe yesterday they quoted that if we don't have more than 20,000 deaths, then we'd have done all right. And that was really hitting home. I know they've been trickling the news, trying not to cause panic, but those 2 statements tells us how serious the government think it is. Ebony, over to you, man.
What have I been up to? Mainly work, really. I've actually, how have I been coping? I've been coping all right. I mean, I don't need to go out unless I really have to, but it's been mainly work. And as you know, I work on in public transport. So, but when I have used public transport, it's been dead. Some of the stations on the underground have been dead, and it just goes to show that London, in the words of the specials, is coming like a ghost town. It's just dead. So, but I mean, I think, you know, this whole thing, I'm very curious to know, because every single day we're hearing more and more people are dying of COVID-19. So it does actually get me worried, and it gets me thinking about how many people are actually dying of COVID-19. How many people are suffering from COVID-19 and also underlying problems, and how many people have actually died of other issues as well.
Yeah.
But in saying that, I just think that people need whatever, however people think, and however much people think that there's a lot of scaremongering out there, which I can understand. What I would say to people is, take this, because every single day somebody is dying of either COVID-19 or COVID-19 and something else, which makes the COVID-19 worse on the immune system. But I'd say take it seriously, and, you know, no picnics, no Mickey taking, no meeting up with people. If you are gonna meet up with people, you know, you need to keep a distance still. You know, when you go out to certain, when you go out to any supermarket now, even a corner shop, that they're keeping the there's a implementation where the corner shop now is allowing only 2 people in at any one time. Even the takeaway place near me is allowing 2 people in at a time. So they're taking it seriously. And I think what needs to be remembered is, or the thing to bear in mind, is that people's attitude to even basic hygiene will change. Even some of our behavioral patterns will need to change with regards to, you know, now I'm having to take off my shoes before I go anywhere else in the house other than the hallway, because what's been said is that COVID-19 can live on the back of your shoes, and also it can live on in your clothes. So now I'm having to take off my clothes straight away, which is what I do anyway. But then, like, what I wasn't doing before was washing it and not mixing clothes, outdoor clothes, with clothes that are freshly washed, and washing the hands. Keeping a distance from people, even if it's your colleagues, because sometimes with your colleagues, even with your colleagues, sometimes you have to. I mean, distances, even.
Yeah, we're starting to lose you a bit there, Ebony. Coronavirus seems to be attacking you as well as Tony. Seriously, guys, I've never witnessed such a technical masterstroke from what's going on in the internet today. And as Bertram said, I can hear you now, but you just flanked out on us there. Yes, it's the delay and the lag is real, man. The delay and the lag is real tonight. Yeah, the delay is real tonight. So listen, guys, there is some football news today. There is some football news, finally. We actually do have live football as well. I just found out today that TV companies are trying to get rights to show games from the Belarus League. As you know, Alexander Kleb, the ex-Arsenal player, was from Belarus, and his hometown league in that place is the only league that they're showing live games. It's the only league where they're still playing football. Now, it's remote. It's a remote league. I get that. But it's still live football. So everybody right now is scratching ITV, BBC, Sky. Everybody's scratching around to try and get TV rights to show live games from a league that no one's probably even heard of. It's really crazy. But that's the world we live in right now. On top of that, though, the main news for us that we need to talk about is, I'm sure you guys are aware, Cesc Fabregas had an amazing interview with Arsblog, and that's up on the Arsblog website for you guys who need to go and check it out. It is about 1 hour and 10 minutes. So I would definitely advise everyone to go in there and listen to that interview. It is very eye-opening. I sat down, I laid down today in bed and listened to the interview, and I was clearly surprised by what had happened and what they talked about. I just want to get the views from you guys to find out how you felt about it. I'll just elaborate a little bit. He talks about recently revealing the struggles and the pressure for him to carry the team as a 21-year-old captain. He talks about his 8-year spell and how it mentally hurt him, and obviously how he had to overcome the fact that he was saying, and this is the main thing, he was saying that it was him, Van Persie, and Samir Nasri that were the only 2 players that was on his level. And seriously, a lot of people, hold on, I think Ebony's got her mic on. And that comment is very strange. I mean, first of all, what do you think about the comment that he's saying only Van Persie and Nasri were on his level? They were only 3 world-class players. What do you think of that, Bertram?
I'm not sure I totally agree with that. I mean, I think Sagna came out and expressed his disappointment with the comment. So if that's, and I think he was a world-class player as far as I'm concerned. He was on the Premier League Team of the Year in one of those years. So he must have been playing well. I think Adebayor should have been around that time also before he went to City, within that time period. So there were a few players who I think were world-class players or really good players. Look, Fabregas's comments reminds me of Van Persie, Koscielny. When you leave a team under not the best circumstances and you realize post playing for that team in the career almost at an end or at an end, that legacy that you had built up that would have been lived on forever, it's now gone. He'll never be viewed in the same way like he would have been if he stayed for his entire career, regardless if he win trophies or not. So whether it's him, he went to Chelsea, who was a rival, he went to Barca, and he wanted to go back home. That's the point. Don't come up with these excuses about and explain why about the players and competition and competing. We understand you wanted to go back home, and you forced your way out of the club.
Yeah, but the thing is, I think the most important thing about the interview is while he agrees and admits that he wanted to go back home, he actually said he didn't want to go at the point he left. He felt that he was forced to go because Arsenal was just wasting time. They weren't taking it seriously. The players weren't serious. The board didn't put money into the team, and he understood that. But he's saying that he wanted to. He wasn't ready to leave at the time, and that's what frustrated me. Yeah, go on, Bertram.
So think about this: Adebayor, Nasri, all those players were good enough to win a title because Man U wasn't great at that point in time. They were very good, but they weren't great necessarily. Right? Chelsea was playing really, really well then. They had a good opportunity to compete for the title at that point in time. They all decided to force their way out of the club. So this excuse about, well, it was management, we agree that we are very frugal as an organization and don't necessarily buy the best players or want to spend money. But I still think we had enough players to compete. And if you want to go home, that's fine. But post making that decision and now realizing that your legacy has been tainted, don't come back and come up with these excuses as to why you left. Just admit that you left. Van Persie realized, even though he won a title, that probably if he stayed, he'd have been much more revered as a player and a person totally across the football community than he has currently. Because he went to Man U as a mercenary, got his title. But how did you feel about that? So you can go around saying I have a title, but at the end of the day, your legacy is tainted. One has to think about, is title the be-all, end-all? I want to think about your legacy and how long it lasts for and how you live on and how you're revered by an organization. It's not just about titles, and if you just think about it. There are players like Gerrard, even though he won a Champions League, when he won a Premier League title, but he's revered at Anfield. So. Yeah.
And before I let Ebony in, obviously the biggest thing about all of this is that Sagna came out and disagreed with Fabregas strongly, and I totally agree with yourself, Bertram, and I agree with Sagna. He doesn't agree with Fabregas at all, and just to run through a few things here. We had Sagna on the team, who was world class. He was the best right back in the Premiership, bar none. And he had big shoes to fill because he was replacing the likes of Lauren from the Invincibles. And he turned out to be the best right back. And I feel sorry for him because he didn't really want to leave, but they all left because the team weren't serious about being ambitious. He went to Man City and didn't win a thing. He didn't win a thing at Man City. But on that Arsenal team, we had Alex Song, which I remind you guys had 17 assists as a midfielder, in one of those seasons. We had Gael Clichy, who was a great replacement for Ashley Cole. We had Thomas Vermaelen, Koscielny, Flamini, Kleb, Walcott, Rosicky, Van Persie, Nasri, Asharvin. We had, and obviously, Almunia, De Juru, and Senderos, which weren't very good. But at the same time, there were some really good players on that team. So what's your thoughts on that, Ebony?
I don't know why he actually opened his mouth in the first place. It's funny how, when these players leave, like your Van Persie's, I mean, Van Persie, when you actually look at it in retrospect, you can understand why they left, because they have ambition and, the game is a short career. But to come out and say that, Nasri and who's the other one? Nasri and
Van Persie.
And Van Persie were the only players on his level. Well, funny he wasn't saying that when they were winning titles. Funny that he didn't say that. He wasn't saying that at the time when they were beating teams. So, and the other thing that he said in his comment as well is that, when they lost, he'd go and cry. I mean, seriously. I mean, you would never hear somebody like Patrick Vieira say that. You never hear Henry say that. You never hear Tony Adams come out with that. So I just think that, if he's going to taint his legacy, then he's going the right way about it. And how does that actually make other players that were in the team at the time feel? If I wasn't either Van Persie or Nasri, I'd be like, what? So you said I wasn't good enough? Because that's what it says. It's saying that, that the other players were not at his level, and that they're effectively crap, is what he was saying. And he needs to remember as well is that when the team lost, he was part of that team as well. So as far as I'm concerned, he could he could give a little bit more respect or respect to the team, to the members of the team that were in the team, or the players that were in the team at that particular time. I just think, these ex-players, particularly Arsenal players that come out with these comments, you're just disrespecting your legacy. You're disrespecting the players that were in the team at the time. To a certain extent, you're disrespecting the fans because they rooted for you and backed you. So come on, just either shut up or have things nice to say about the people who were around you at the time, who you lost with, Cesc.
I'll say one more thing, actually, Apollo, which is those players who left did not become the main player of the team that they went to.
True.
Your realization of, say, I'm just another player, or I'm a good player in a very good team, or I'm not the man anymore. Not everything's not centered around me. Open your eyes and realize that, you know what? If I won a title, it's really humbling when you realize I'm not the man. In the Barca team, they had to force this into the team someplace. They threw him everywhere just to get him into the team. But you had Iniesta and Xavi there, so he was never the main player. And forget about Messi. So it was probably a struggle for him where he was the person. He was a captain at a very young age at Arsenal. Same with Van Persie against the Man U. Rooney was the man there. So they were never the main player. They were never the main person. And that must have been humbling for them, and realizing after leaving that, you know what? It's not always better on the other side. It's not always, the grass is not always greener.
And that's the reason why he even said that when he came, Barcelona was quick to get rid of him. After a couple of seasons, they didn't want him. This was a club, his boyhood football club, who he dreamed about playing for. They didn't want him. And when he came back to London, it was a humbling experience for him, as you said, because he found out at that point how important it was for him to be back at Arsenal. And then he talked about the clause in his contract. So he gave Arsenal 24 hours to say, look, I'm available. You can call me if you want me. He waited a week and Arsenal still didn't get back to him. And that was never confirmed. We didn't know whether it was Wenger who's telling the truth or Cesc was telling the truth. Now, because of that interview, we knew Cesc was the one that was telling the truth. He went to Arsenal and said, "I'm available again," and they turned their nose up at him. Ebony.
We chose.
Yeah, I mean, he went to. I can understand to Barcelona to win trophies, and that's understandable. But what did he actually win at Barcelona? I think he went to Barcelona because he wanted to win the Champions League. It didn't happen, and it was inevitable that he was going to be sat on the bench. How did he honestly think that Messi was going to be dropped? At the time, you had Iniesta, you had Messi, you had Puyol. I don't think what's his name was in there. Ronaldo had gone. Sorry, not Ronaldo. Ronaldinho had gone by then. But you had like stellar players in that team. No one was going to be dropped for him. So he was a bit part player. So the fact still remains that he's disrespected. He's disrespected the team that he was with at the time. It'll be very interesting if he ever meets up with them at any point. I just think that when you look back on his Barcelona career, which was not very long, he just wasn't as good as, well, for them anyway, he just wasn't as good as he thought he was. And if Barcelona come calling for you and you sat on the bench, that drives it home.
Yeah.
I'll say this, which is the nature of his game. At Arsenal, he could play at his own speed. He didn't have to press. I mean, Barca pressed quite a bit. When they lost the ball, they're all over you. Only person that had to press hard was Messi. He can do whatever he wants, but everyone else had to put in a shift, even Iniesta and Xavi. So if you don't have that flexibility. You always feel at your risk if you were any other player outside of those core players. And so it was very difficult for him, I think, and he made a mistake. Look, he was a fabulous player. And I advocated for him coming back to us versus Ozil, for example. I was beating the drum that we should have taken Fabregas back because 15 assists and 15 goals in one season says a lot about a player in the PL.
Oh yes.
So
and
I couldn't see.
He was 24 years old. He was just getting started.
Yes. Yeah. It's unfortunate, but look, it's history. I know he's probably hurt. In hindsight, thinking I could have been, regardless of what I won or didn't win at Barca, I was just a bit player at Barca, frankly. Versus Arsenal, I'm the star, I'm the man. All the accolades are going to come through me. I was a captain at a very young age. Think about that legacy that you have if you stayed at Arsenal versus at Barca, at Chelsea, I know at Monaco, he's just a regular player.
Yeah, he is. And the fact that he didn't want to go to Manchester. Obviously, United were interested in him. When he didn't think that Chelsea would want him because Mourinho was there, and he was surprised when Mourinho called him. And we know even when he started and Mourinho took over, he played okay for the first year. But in the second year, when his legs had gone and he didn't press as much, he was on the bench.
As he said, he was not physically gifted, and that's saying it nicely. So look, he's a player who I believe could have even played center midfield, not to do too much work. Like Pirlo, he could have functioned in that capacity. He can make a pass from any angle, split a defense, outside, inside. He's just a fabulous ball at his feet. But without the ball, he's useless. And obviously, a Conte or a Mourinho, you have to play defense, and even Pep at Barca. So it made his life difficult.
Yeah, and so moving on, the situation. I've got computer and laptop here at the moment. This is crazy. So, so at the moment, the news coming through, guys. Remember in a video that I made a while ago, we was talking about players getting cut and players taking pay cuts. It seems now that a lot of the players, as I said in my midweek video, all the players from Bayern Munich and Dortmund have taken pay cuts. It seems that this is definitely coming through now to the Premier League. We know the Premier League has been put on high alert because there's some big teams, Real Madrid now, a report that some of their players are surplus to requirements. We're talking about players like Luka Modric, Gareth Bale, Rodriguez. They're probably all going to hit the market this summer. And listen, it's going to happen at some point where teams are going to continually make players taking pay cuts and just releasing them. And that's going to be happening probably over the next month as we speak. Now, the one thing that really irked me was that the Premier League is facing the potential of pushing this forward because they're not going to be using money to bail people out. You know, where do you think that this can go in the mix of things in terms of the player movement? It's going to turn like the NFL, where players are just going to get let go and then it's going to be a free-for-all. What's your thoughts on that, Bertrand?
It all depends on timing. So how long will this last? You could look at the disruption that we had in 2008, where Wall Street never truly came back in terms of compensation. So what happened was companies would invest their own money to generate gains and generate profits. When they changed the laws after 2008, what happened was you now have those firms become a conduit. All those individuals who invested that money had to leave the firm to start their own firms. Same concept here, which is you're not getting all the TV money to get. Look, the thing that's important here is the fans matter. Right? The fans pay your salary at the gate, and the fans pay your salary through the TV viewership, and advertising obviously trying to attract viewers. So I don't think players had the same appreciation for the fans as they probably should have, and fans decide whether or not you get compensated highly. So it depends on how long this lasts. If it lasts a long time, there are going to be a lot of austerity measures taken to sort of rectify some of this. People will have to take pay cut, whether they want to or not. I have no empathy, sympathy, or anything as it relates to the league, the players. They make enough money. If you haven't saved your money, then too bad. You make enough to save. People out here are losing. We have 3 million people on the unemployment line in the US have no idea where the next paycheck coming from. I have no empathy or sympathy for players. You don't have money to last you for a while, and they're not saying you're not going to get paid. You're going to take a pay cut. Not that you don't get a check. So you're not Sterling. You're not getting 300,000. You're going to take 150. After tax, you get 75. Really? You can buy a lot with 75,000 pounds, actually, which is about probably 90K, 100K in terms of US dollars.
Yeah,
it's a lot of resources. I have no empathy or sympathy. I'm sorry.
It is, and listen, I'm laughing because 18's been calling Ebony his Nubian queen, and he's Queen Ebony, and all of that stuff. My man is just throwing it on right now, and and he's been leaving some stuff like that in the comments most weeks. And I think the most important thing is, Ebony, what's your thoughts on the way that these players are taking pay cuts? All of Bayern Munich pay cuts, all of Borussia Dortmund. It's going to happen in the Premier League at some point.
Well, much respect to any player who's on at least £50,000 a week. If they're taking a pay cut, much respect to them, because at the end of the day, when you look at this country, and actually, as Bertram said, when you're looking at across the world, 3 people in this country are losing their jobs. Okay, lots of people in this country, millions of people in the UK, especially, they haven't got jobs to go back to. So they're relying on crumbs, if you like, from the government. So the fact that people don't have money to spend on matches, and let's face it, the Premier League has some of the most expensive tickets in the world. These players have to understand that right now people are going through a recession. Right now, people don't have any money, or lots of football fans don't have any money to spend. They don't even have a pot to urinate in right now. So the fact that we're on lockdown, the whole world is on lockdown, and nobody can even afford to get a shirt, let alone a ticket. What is a pay cut to them? A pay cut to them is what? Half of their wages. So if somebody's on £150,000 a week, they're going to get what, 75,000. That's more than enough for a player to live on. And I do agree, if you're a footballer and you're earning a high wage, you're earning millions a year, and you can't put away for a rainy day, are your business.
Yeah, true that. Yeah. So I think we got Tony back. Tony, are you with us? I think we got Tony back. Good.
How you doing, guys?
It's like it's in Star Trek.
Listen, Tony, we were just talking about player cuts and getting and taking pay cuts. Obviously, you heard about Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund all those players have taken pay cuts. So let's just look at this semantics of that and the logistics. How that would work. Now, Arsenal's pay cut would be a lot. If you're talking about 20%, so Arsenal's salary is about 400 million. Is it 400 million? Yeah, Arsenal's salary is about 400 million a year. Yeah, which is what their end payments is in salaries. So if you took 20% off that, if everyone had a 20% reduction, that's a lot of money, guys. You're talking about 18 million pounds in a year. That would be enough, I think, to float the boat. If Arsenal gave everybody a 20% pay cut and saved 80 million a year, then that would put them in real good stead. Remember, I talked about the losses that they're facing year on year. Last year they lost 27 million. This year it would be a massive deficit that Arsenal be walking into. If they introduce play cuts, which you know what, I'm absolutely sure that they will, that would get them out of the red. Tony, what's your thoughts on that?
I'm not.
Sorry, Bertram, go on quickly because I know
I'm not sure that's the case though. What's the top line number? What's the revenue number? There's Adidas has a clause which basically says you have to be playing to me to pay for your sponsorship fee. How many revenues they lost from the PL that they would have gotten between now and the end of the season? We all have to think about what's that revenue number they're going to generate. It's not going to be the same amount come year end. So I agree with you. The costs get reduced, but the top line number also get reduced. So net, where do you come out? That I'm not sure about.
I think the TV revenue, if they play behind closed doors, which is what they're saying it will be. I know Arsenal are saying they're going to get the fans back to finish the season, but I don't think that's going to happen. The fact that the government's talking this is going to last anywhere from 3 to 6 months. And we're going to come on to that later on. The FA made a statement today, which looks like it ain't going to happen. So Arsenal are keeping their fingers crossed that the fans will come back, because that means 3.5 million at the gate and more money in concessions. But that's wishful thinking. I think that's done right now. Tony, what's your thoughts on that?
It's an interesting thought. I mean, numbers are really skewed. I mean, without really knowing in depth how everything would play out, it's just conjecture, supposition, guesstimating, because we don't know what people are going to have to sacrifice. I mean, let's put it this way. 20% of Ainsley Maitland's 30 grand a week deal, or 10 grand a week deal, whatever he's on, compared to 20% of Mesut Ozil's 450 grand, you're talking about huge disparities in the amount of money we're talking about. Let's be honest. The owners are very rich. They're very rich people. Can they stomach these losses themselves and put it on themselves? Well, obviously, Stan Kroenke has other sporting organizations where he may have to pay out some. Yeah, but right now the NFL are on an off season, so he ain't paying anything. Yeah, because when the NFL is off season, the players don't get paid. They get paid when they're playing during the season. When they're playing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the soccer, I don't know what the situation is there, but I wouldn't imagine any of his soccer players, bar 1 or 2 internationals, are on big money. So clearly, Arsenal for him would probably be his biggest expense. And could he stomach some of it? Of course he can. He's a multi-millionaire. And then you just go, right, okay, can some of your bigger earners, your guys who are on 400, 300, 250, 200, 150, stomach a 20% loss? Well, you're not exactly, shy of a bob or two. You're not going to be, okay, I can't afford to go out and get a new Lamborghini, but you know what? The old one's going to do all right, Mr. Thank you very much, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. So I don't see what the issue is with getting numbers right. If you talk to people and say, you know what, these are desperate times. We're in a situation here. We can either close the club or we can do something to continue the way it's going to be. This business about selling players to balance the books. Well, is that not every club globally? So it's not going to make a difference whether you're Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, FC Stuttgart, or Lorient in the French Division 1. Everybody's going to try to balance books, and everybody's going to have to take some cuts somewhere in order to balance their books. So it's not like a simple case of saying, okay, just get rid of that player, because where's he going to go? He's going to end up unemployed. And you're going to end up with a world of unemployed players. You know, Alex Song currently is unemployed to the best of my knowledge, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Right. So you got to go, well, hang on a second. You're a guy who's earning, I don't know, whatever wages. Let's just say he's earning 80 grand wherever he is. You're going to tell me that another Premier League club has got another player who's worth, I don't know, 200 grand a week, going to say, you know what, I can't afford you. I'm going to take Alex Song and pay him his 80 grand that he needs to live.
Yeah, it's a lot of money, and like Bertram said, it's almost like they don't need it. You know, they can afford to take a pay cut. I mean, right now we know that it's Aaron Ramsey that donated just 10,000 to Wales to fight the coronavirus. Now, 10,000. This guy's on 400,000 euros a week.
Yeah, you know, did you hear the story about Joel Embiid? Joel Embiid offered to pay the salaries of all the people behind the scenes at the 76ers before the owners decided to do that. Once he stepped up and said, you know what, I'm going to pay their salary, then the owners finally went, oh, you know what, we'll also chip in.
Yeah.
What kind of bullshit is that?
The Arsenal salary is 100 million actually per year. And my favorite player makes 20% of that, almost 20%, 18% of that. Our best player by far, my favorite player, the hardest worker, makes.
Is that Mr. Lazy?
It's Mr. Lazy. Mr. Lazy makes about 20%. Aubameyang makes another 10%, and so does. Like I said, so 40% of our funds go to 3 players.
3 players. There you go.
Okay. Thanks for looking it up. I don't know where I got that number from. I had it on Forbes website, so I don't know I don't know how they were calculating it. Maybe it was. Maybe they were doing it over the last 5 years. I don't know, but I came up with that 400 million figure. I'll have to double check.
And
what it was.
Mkhitaryan makes a lot too, by the way. Mkhitaryan makes a lot.
Yeah,
he's turned 2-1. Vince is just like, whoa. Vince is just like, whoa. And 18 is saying Arsenal will still lose money. Look, they lost 27 million last year and still didn't even chip in with anything. So you know what? It is what it is, man. Anyway, listen, guys. Most important thing, as I said, Aaron Ramsey donated money to Wales. So that was really nice of him. But at the end of the day, guys, at the moment, this is going to bring us on to the FA are talking about potential cuts within the FA. And right now, what are you guys doing? It looks like it's moving. So guys, it looks like that the FA are putting together, they're going to have a meeting to put together a potential 100 million plus pay cuts to keep lower leagues. So it looks like some of the money they're taking off the big leagues is going to spread out to lower leagues, which we've been talking about for a while now. But the most important thing is, guys, Martin Lippmann is talking about there's going to be emergency talks on the 30th of April, which is when the FA are meeting back. And those talks are really going to be about the long-term strategy. And what we might be seeing is the FA absolutely scrapping the rest of the season if this thing goes beyond May. So listen, this is going to be a potential nightmare because we have to take into consideration teams on the brink of relegation or promotion. How is that going to... I can see a court case going into hell. I can see months and months and months of teams just taking the league to court because of the money they'll be losing out.
On what basis?
On the basis that this virus may run well into June and it just won't be able. The season won't be able to be finished. That's
so
what the FA.
How is the FA culpable for that? What offence have the FA committed to enforce any struggles for any club? That's not their fault. They cannot be taken to court. There's no ground. You know, there's not a contract clause that says in the event of sudden world doom that you must pay us your money. No.
Yeah, I think what it would be is, and Bertram knows all about this because Americans, they sue for everything. Yeah, they sue for everything. I think it would just be something where they would try and cover off a loss of earnings. So if we made the Premiership, if we got in, we would have made this amount of money.
No,
and then,
sorry.
What they're looking for?
They're two different organisations. Don't forget, you're talking about. Somebody suing the Premier League against somebody suing the Football Association, yeah?
Yes.
Or the EFL.
And it would be the Football Association that would make that decision. That's what Martin Lippmann has reported.
So ultimately, if the season is incompleted and they have to start it again from scratch at the next season, nobody can come and say, "Oh, I'm owed money because I was on the brink of getting into the Premier League." Nobody.
Yeah. I think that as well.
The season is incomplete. You cannot make any decision to say somebody is due anything because the season being incomplete means that you have no right to say you were going to do anything.
Right. So in saying that, Tony, it's a good point. So in saying that, does that mean then that Liverpool are not champions? Does that mean that you void the season?
100%.
I love it.
100%.
Bertram, come into this, man.
I don't think you can make Liverpool champion if they were mathematically champion. So that, yes, they were in the driver's seat, but being in the driver's seat doesn't mean you're going to win the race. It just means you're closer to the finish line than your competitors. Yeah. I don't necessarily see that they cannot be offered, they cannot be deemed the champion. Because remember, you're the champion, you get higher payout than your competitors. Not a ton in the Premier League. They can't be made champion. The season hasn't finished. As I've said before, the season never happened. It's like the Olympics.
Yeah.
So Japan has spent a ton of money for the Olympics, billions of dollars. There is no Olympics. That affects everything. They may have had plans for other events, other activities. They have to then scale that all back. All the athletes who have trained, think about all these athletes who have guaranteed almost to win a gold medal. A year later, they may not be guaranteed. The season never happened. I've said it from day one. We will not be having a season going forward. Guys, I know countries, and even in my country here, talk about some timeline, a month from now, 2 months from now. But here's the reality. When your hospitals start getting overloaded, when fear comes into your society, and the fear is real, and the fear is not subsiding, then you got to make some tough decisions. And starting back a league, starting back an economy, as I've said this 100 times, unless you close it down, truly close it down, we're in for a long haul. Some little thing that we can't see with the naked eyes is putting us and telling us that we need to change as individuals and as human beings. And this concept of Premier League and TV rights and NBA, whatever we want to talk about, we're going to be at home for a while. Let's get used to how it is to live at home.
Exactly. Listen, Vinci is saying season done already, and there's not even a question mark, it's an exclamation mark. And he's pretty much bang on. The same with 18 saying that it would be cancelled. And before I hand it over to you, Ebony, this is the thing, as humans, we think we're in control. We're saying we're going to be back to work in 2 weeks. That was 2 weeks ago, remember? 2 weeks we said we just need to shut it down for a couple of weeks. But as Bertram said, this virus has not even hit its peak yet. We have got 1,000 deaths in the UK, and the government today came out and said if we can keep the number below 20,000, then we'd have done all right. So if we've only got 1,000 people dead now, and the government think that total is going to be 20,000, April the 1st is coming. We're not even remotely close for this thing to be over. So for the Football Association or anybody in football to think that we're going to come back in May or June, you're having a laugh. There is not going to be any football at all for a very, very long time.
And the other thing that that I want to mention is that obviously, if players have been away from their squads for significant periods of time, they cannot just be asked to say, you know what, we're playing football next week. It can't happen. It's like with boxing at the moment. If you've got a fight scheduled for April, and you've not been able to spar, you can't fight until August because you have to get your pre-season back in. You have to get your work in. You've got to get everything back where it's, you know, able to compete at competitive levels, not at behind closed doors levels. Those are things that people are not considering.
Yeah, and Ebony, before I hand it over to you, we saw Lukaku talking to Ian Wright last week, and the man was putting his feet up on the couch playing Xbox and PlayStation and chilling. He is nowhere near ready for football right now.
Yeah, well, if there's not going to be any games for the foreseeable future, and the FA are making cuts. I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of how much people get paid within the FA, but with regards to but if they have to make cuts because there's no money coming in because of TV rights, then so be it. You know, other companies, they have to make cuts as well. You know, how do the employees feel? But like I said, I don't know how much any employer in the FA gets paid. I don't know how much the head of the FA gets paid. I'm sure that he gets paid millions a year. As for games, you know, if the season has to be voided and the Liverpool fans get upset, you know, so be it, because this thing isn't going to go away anytime soon. It's going to be here for quite a while. You know, if we're talking about, the FA or the Premier League coming back to meet at the end of April. It's going to take time. You know, what's going to happen? You know, how are games going to be scheduled? That's something that will take maybe a couple of weeks. I don't know, but I just think that for now we have to concentrate on the most important thing, which is the coronavirus or COVID-19. And games right now, they're not important, because at the end of the day,
I said this.
Sorry. Yeah, go on, Tony. So sorry, her mic is muting, so I have to shut it down when she talks. So yeah, go on.
Yeah, so I was always going to say, the thing that we have to all understand is that at this current time, you know, we've got a lot of people who are going to rely on the government stimulus packages and the generosity of people of wealth. You know, people of wealth. In 2 months' time, there's going to be knocks at doors saying, "We need your help." Yeah, a lot of them people. Look at what's going on in Italy now. Yeah,
look at what's going on in Italy. People.
I saw yesterday Floyd Mayweather floating around with Antonio Brown on Instagram with their stacks of money, going, "Look at me. I haven't lost a penny since this whole thing's happened." Yeah, but guess what, Mr. Floyd Mayweather? You're going to soon find people knocking at your door saying, "Hang on a second, you've got a stack of money. You can help us out of a situation. Yeah, you've got X number of employees working for you, yeah, who aren't earning a crust. Are you going to cover them? Yeah, so let's see you get into your money and start divvying out." And a lot of other people are going to be like that. I mean, Oprah Winfrey has a huge empire. Tyler Perry has a huge empire. They've got hundreds of employees working for them. Stan Kroenke has an empire. He has hundreds of people working for him. Yeah. And it's not a case of saying, well, you know what, just sack them and we won't pay them. When you look to start that enterprise again, who's coming to work for you?
But see, you know, obviously this is the reason why people talked about the DC film Joker, which won the Academy Awards for Best Actor and all that, because the Joker was talking about how the rich people in that part don't care about the mental health people and the poor people. They don't care, and as long as they're living behind their front door, they'll throw out little pieces of dollars if they, you know, just to make themselves feel good. But at the end of the day, once they're behind their door, they're happy. They don't need to worry about anything. And at the moment, we've got a situation where we've got footballers who are putting money into paying to help build ventilators. When you look at the NHS, we were told that in a pandemic, we would need 30,000 ventilators in order for us to facilitate a crisis. Do you know how much ventilators we have? 8,000. That's not even a third of the ventilators that we needed in a crisis. That's why we're crumbling. And you have to remember, ventilators are only to help people with breathing problems. And from what I've been told, if you're on a ventilator for more than 72 hours, the chances are you're probably not going to make it. Yeah. The longer you're on a ventilator.
Listen, I listened to the Joe Rogan Experience. He did a conversation a couple of days back, and there was an exercise called Exercise Cygnus. Yeah, where effectively America and the UK did a planning strategy in case the flu became something greater than it currently is. Not expecting it to be the coronavirus at the time, but just in case flu, the percentage of people it killed went up, and they were failing across the board. Yeah. So the typical scenario is the ventilators that supply America come from one place in Puerto Rico. And they said, well, if the flu virus increases by 2%, this place in Puerto Rico would just not be able to handle it. And guess what? That's exactly what's happened. So the UK government, the US government are playing numbers with what's the worst case scenario and trying to fudge the numbers so that they don't end up putting into place strategy that allows them to be able to deal with these kind of situations. Yeah. Okay. These people know about the facts that biological things could happen at any given time and force them into the position they are currently in. So don't think that this is a new thing that, oh, we didn't know this kind of thing could happen. They knew about it years ago. And as I said, just look up, you know, they run certain things in over and over to say, if this is the case, if this situation happens, how can we deal with it? Yeah.
Right. So I
think they've run a lot of simulation. Go ahead.
So before I hand over to Bertram, Ebony came up with a topic for us today to talk about in terms of what has this pandemic taught us. So that's really what we're going to cover now. And you guys can spend as long as you need to in order to get your point across. So let's just go with that, Bertram, as well as the point that you was going to make. So what has this pandemic really taught us? Go on.
Sorry, guys. Sorry, Apollo. Sorry to interrupt. Can I do my piece first? Because I've got a little young man I need to deal with. So let me tell you what. Go. All right. So I'm going to leave you my piece and you can chew the cud. But effectively, what this pandemic has taught us is we have to, as mankind, be more accountable for what goes on behind the scenes. Because clearly things are happening. If you do your due diligence, you'll realize that these types of issues with regards to pandemics and, you know, the fact that we have these viruses kicking in pretty much every 10 years. Yeah.
Yes.
These things are happening on a regular basis. People behind the scenes know this is going to happen all the time. They already know what things are going to happen. Unfortunately, though, those people are happy to allow these things to happen without putting into place the measures required to ensure that we as a society can deal with those things. Yeah. So we're all panicking because we never expected it. But those people up above and in the right places knew that these things were going to happen. So hence the reason now that you work it out. We can't find enough money to house the people who were made homeless by the Grenfell Tower disaster. Yeah? Which is
they still
hundreds.
Ain't been housed.
Right.
They still ain't been housed.
Right. Yeah? 4 years later. Yeah? Yet, out of the blue, we're talking about multi-trillion-pound stimulus packages. The money is there.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah?
But they didn't care enough to give the people.
Just look at those two dynamics. You couldn't afford to house homeless people who were made homeless by a fire created by inept governance of housing structure. But yet now a biohazard comes along and we can find not billions, but trillions to subsidize people. Yeah. So all I'm going to say is they knew this. They knew this. They know what they can do. They know what we could eradicate homelessness in the Western world. We could probably eradicate homelessness globally if we're all linked up together. But no, some people are just too greedy to do that. And that is what I'm going to leave you with. We know these things are happening behind the scenes.
Yeah.
We know that the resources of the planet are more than enough to feed the planet. But unfortunately, it's not enough to feed the greed of the planet and mankind in general. And hopefully, this is now going to start people thinking about that. And that's what I'm going to leave with you.
Yeah, that's a good point. And a lot of that obviously says that we know that the top 1% gets all the tax breaks. But what's happening here is they've also got money in that stimulus package too to go to the top 1%. So this is the reason that confuses me, is like we've given them all these tax breaks, but at the same time, the stimulus packages are there to help banks, companies, and everything else, and they're included in that. So, but for me, it's just about infrastructure, how poor the infrastructure is, and how poor the preparation is. And as I said, in the UK, we needed 30,000 ventilators, and we've only got 8,000. It's not enough in a pandemic. Bertrand, did you want to go, or did you want Ebony to go after you?
I'm out.
I can go. I mean, this is a
nice one, Tony. Nice one, man.
This is a podcast unto itself. This topic is a whole much longer than 2-hour discussion about what we have learned. Yeah. I think sometimes what you have to do is look. If you fail to plan, then you're planning to fail, right? That's sort of fundamental. But I think it's more than the pandemic, though. I think Tony raised a great point, which is, when is humankind going to take a step back and realize that we're only here for a short time? We may have a purpose, and it's unfair for some people to live an affluent lifestyle and others to be in squalor and be emaciated and have nothing actually, and just live trying to survive day to day for the entire length of your life. That's not a good way to live. So when are we going to share more? So here's what I jot down a few things that jump out at me as relates to this, and we're nowhere close to the end, by the way. And actually, this could change civilization as we know it. So I'm going to give you an example of what it is. And this was I think it's the best period for the gun shops or for the arms industry in a long time. People are not buying guns because they're trying to defend their property. They're buying guns for apocalypse, which is, if I get to a point where I have nothing, I'm going to take it. That's the way I sort of view that whole gun buying situation, which then means you have a chaotic society. It means civilization gets pushed back in a very challenging situation. So I jotted down a few things which jump to mind. It's a lot. Obviously, you always have to plan. This is a warning in terms of, this is a pandemic. The max amount of people who can die from is about 4%. 7 billion people, about 300 million, 280 million. A lot of people. But we all die every day, right? So people say that's okay. But we have climate change, which we're doing with the industrialized world, the worst polluters, and are not leading the rest of the world about how to manage this, which is much more devastating than some pandemic that we're experiencing. We have things like meteors, which at some point one may hit the hurt. What are we doing, strategizing as a globe to sort of address these situations before they materialize into actual events? We are much more interconnected than we think we are. And this whole thing about going nationalism, whether it's the UK or the US, we're trying to recall and we try to be all about ourselves, doesn't work anymore. The supply chain is distributed. It's not going back. It's not going to recall. So this whole concept of, I am just going to be for my country and people are taking my jobs. No, you didn't want to do the menial labor. That's why it got exported. So you have to think about a way how the people across, you can't blame immigration for this anymore. This wasn't immigration that caused this. It's some of your people traveling back and forth because they're doing business or for pleasure that caused this to happen. We have many heroes in this whole thing, especially healthcare workers. Think about it. You're going to work with a view that you may die or you may infect your family. We had 50 doctors in Italy died. That's a huge number of the
That's what I'm
capital
saying.
to look for the world to lose 50 doctors dying.
Yeah.
Also, what was
Yeah.
interesting in Italy, given their quote unquote situation with the whole race issue, is that all those Cuban doctors who went to Italy, I saw them, they were walking without masks, but being cheered across the board when they arrived. So that human barrier, that whole view of people different from me, different persuasion, that gets broken down when you have these situations where people feel vulnerable. And the question is, do I go back to who I was or do I change?
And I totally agree. I just want to say something there. We've had a situation last week where we were talking about Germany closed off their borders in terms of equipment. So they weren't doing any more export or import because they make a lot of masks. They make a lot of the ventilators, which we import and export. So in the process of Brexit, what we've, we don't want nothing to do with any countries as far. We want to lock in our own sovereignty, but now we're screaming for all this equipment that we ain't got. And the other thing is, all these nurses that had come from Taiwan, Singapore, that was in our NHS, which we're saying, and a lot of these nurses have left, by the way. We're now moaning to say, well, why did the nurses leave? They left because you don't want to be a part of a world or EU anymore. Yeah, that's why all the doctors are there. And now the NHS are looking, they're getting retired nurses and doctors to come back into the NHS because we propped a system in Brexit saying that we want to give the jobs to our own people and not have people come out from different countries and take our jobs. Well, look where we are now. So for me, that's a big lesson that the UK are going to have to accept that they've created for themselves. And we're talking about a matter of 6 or 12 months. These people are just left. And look at what state we're in now. Yeah,
well,
on, Bertram.
I think the industrialized world want to cherry pick the talent they get, right? They just want the best of the best from other countries, and they don't necessarily want to understand they have to reciprocate. You have to take others who are trying to find a better life. You can't just pick off the best intellect and then say, I don't want the rest of you. You have these specialized skills. Life doesn't work like that. People are trying to improve. Most immigrants actually will do well when they migrate someplace else because they have an incentive. They're incentivized to maximize that opportunity that they've been given. And that's why when people migrate to see immigrants do so well, they work 3 and 4 jobs and people laugh at them. There is a pattern, there is a rationale for the behavior, and one should not begrudge those who achieve a lot because they have sacrificed to do so. It also suggests that democracy sometimes doesn't work as well. No, I love democracy, don't get me wrong. But sometimes being democratic doesn't work as well as you'd like it. Like situations like these, where you need to make tough decisions, but everyone wants to operate or they've operated before. In the UK, they give directions about not being on the beach, in public places. In Jamaica, in the US, especially the young are oblivious to this. They want to do their own thing, and they don't want to. In China, they basically say you can't be on the street, or in Russia, there's repercussions if you are. So we have to adjust our behavior to think about the collective versus the individual. We think about the individual too much, not about the collective. That's why we have these inequalities and disparities amongst people in the same environment, in the same country. In the US, I think about 60% of people live off from paycheck to paycheck. That's ridiculous. So times like these, when you don't have a paycheck, how does that work? So we as human beings have to be more humane, have to have much more empathy, and sometimes even sympathy for people who are around us. Otherwise, what we're going to end up in a situation like this is we're going to have chaos. And right now, I dread if this lasts another 2 to 3 months, because those people who are living from paycheck to paycheck, as Tony said, they won't just be knocking at your door. They'll ask nicely, and then they'll take it if they can't get it. Because what are you going to do? You can't starve with your kids. You got to do something about it. So I hope that all these stimulus package, the U.S. is giving $1,200 to individuals. For 4 months. You know what the average rent in New York is? In New York City?
Yeah, I know they were talking about it. So that's each person. So if you're a family of 3, then obviously you times that by 3.
Well, no, you get the difference. No, they say between individual and family. So if you're married, you get a certain amount. You get almost double. And if you're single, you get a certain amount. And it's under a certain, it goes up, just like the UK tax rate. If you make $75,000 or less, you get the $1,200 individual. If you make more, it gets sort of decreased gradually until certain people get nothing. But to me, that doesn't do much for people, right?
Yeah, the only thing in that favor though, but do remember that loans and mortgages are deferred for 3 months at the moment now in the US and UK.
Yeah, so here's the thing. A lot of people in New York rent. They don't have mortgages. They don't have loans. They rent. So here's what happens is they're saying, well, landlords should give rent for 3 months. Well, you know what? The city is taking water rate. You got to pay your water bill. You got to pay your taxes on your property. You have to pay light. You have to pay gas. You have to pay repairs. Who's going to compensate the landlord? And some of them are small landlords who have multifamily homes. So you have a conundrum. You need to, unless everybody's going to forgive, and then you have no economic activity, which is even worse. We're in a conundrum which has no clear solution. Now, I think one could say, you know what? Let's all go back to work. Let's take the risk of going back to work. You get infected, you recover, and people will die. That's also not a solution because your systems get overburdened. So we're in a conundrum with no clear out about where we go. And I dread what it's going to look like a few months from now if it continues. But hopefully, there will be no cure. We have to have more tests and more isolation. We just need to lock it down. Lock down the world. Don't lock down New York. Don't lock down Manhattan. Don't lock down New Jersey. Lock down the world for 2 months. We feel some pain, but we're in a better place. Because then you have a 15-minute test, right? Albert's laboratory came up with a 15 minutes. You lock it down, you test everybody, and you got to put people back into society. Otherwise, we're going to struggle.
Yeah, and as far as the testing goes, on one of my videos, I think it was the one before yesterday, I looked at South Korea, and they have made booths. Remember, they learned from MERS. They've made these booths. So the people who come in and get testing are behind plastic sheets. There's no contact, which means that there's no risk of the doctors. Like all that's happening in America, Italy, Spain, and the UK is doctors are getting sick. Today in the UK, another doctor who was 55 died, passed away. And that's just happening. All these doctors are dying. So in South Korea, that doesn't happen because what you've built, what you've learned from 16 years ago with MERS, you're prepared. Your preparation is there. It's all set up. There's a plastic sheet. There's 2 pieces where you put your hands in to do the tests. And I believe the test takes 2 hours. So within 2 hours, you know whether you've got it or not. Why haven't we done that in America and the UK? Why don't we have something like that? Why? Because we've never learned from anything that's happened before. So when you said that the world would look like a different place after this, you're 100% right. Because we have not adhered any lessons or any preparation in terms of where we are from anything that's happened in the past. We wasn't as affected with SARS in terms of the Western world. MERS, we wasn't as affected as well because that, again, was something that was very strong and evident in the East. So this is the first real thing. You know, even Ebola in Africa was more prominent there. In the West, we haven't really suffered from a pandemic as such. This is the first time that we've really been blown up and we've been exposed. Our lack of preparation and infrastructure has sadly been exposed. So I would really want to see how they come out of this in terms of their foresight. How much money are they going to put back into the system? I did say in my last video, I said we would never send our army and our military into war with a lack of equipment. We just wouldn't do it. It wouldn't be on the cards. It's not acceptable. So why are we doing it with our nurses and doctors, Bertram?
Well, I'm not sure why we don't think this is a war. And it's not a good war because at least in a traditional war, you know who your enemies are. They probably look like you. This is different. You can't even see the enemy. You have to go under some microscope to see the enemy. And the enemy use you as part of the way to fight you. Use your own body as a way of fighting the enemy. So it's a very tough fight to fight, and it's not even a fair fight. I'll give you an example. Malawi has shut its borders. Malawi has shut down the country. They haven't shown a case yet. Now they will have some because a lot of Malawi people work in South Africa. But they shut down their country to say, you know what? This is how we're going to fight this thing because we know we don't have the resources to do testing. And forget about ventilators, which cost $25,000 a pop. Where are you going to get money if you're Malawi to buy ventilators? So prevention is better than cure, is what they're employing. You talk about ventilators, think about it, $25,000 a pop, and you need 30,000, 40,000. That money starts adding up. Now think about this. The world doesn't have enough resource to do all these things that people are trying to do. The US doesn't have infinite resource. The UK doesn't have infinite resource. They may think they do, but that debt has to be paid at some point.
Yes,
So
that's
when
right,
when you're assuming all this debt, you somehow have to pay it back at some point. Think about yourself taking all this debt on and can't generate the revenues because the revenues come from tax roll. That's why people invest in your bonds. That's why they buy your
That's
security
right.
because you're getting
Yeah.
taxes as a guaranteed way of income. If you don't employ people, the taxes are not coming in. So how are you gonna pay for that debt that you're incurring? Now
Yeah,
you can
you
defer it
literally
like we
can't.
do.
You
Yeah.
can't print money off fast enough.
Yeah, and then you're gonna have inflation, and then you're gonna have challenges. So it's a tough situation.
So Ebony, let me bring you in here, man. I know you. It looks like Ebony's having a bit of problem with her connection. Ebony, what's your thoughts?
She's frozen again.
Yeah, she's having some real problems with her connection. Ebony, you with
Can you
us?
hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yep, I can hear
Can you
you.
hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, what's it taught us? Okay. One of the things that for me that that this whole pandemic has taught us is how useless, nigh on useless, this government really is. When you take into consideration that Boris Johnson laughed it off as a bit of a cold, he in the beginning said that we're going to this is something that we're going to pass through, and then he decides to take it seriously. The other thing that that it's taught me is that we're so far behind the other countries with regards to our resources. How can we, the fifth biggest economy in the world, have only 8,000 ventilators, and now at the mercy of Dyson and Ferrari and all these other companies that want to make that have offered to make ventilate. The other thing that annoys me about this government is the fact that they've closed down, or they've gotten rid of how many beds, which has caused hospitals to come in this country, but yet we're now having to create 3 makeshift hospitals, one of them being in the XL, the other one being in the NEC in Birmingham, and the other one in Manchester. How have we got to this point? And we've got to this point is because down to this party who have taken away the means to help people who are in this current situation to live. Because as Boris said, and it's down to his party, and he's part of the problem. He is one of the biggest parts of the problem. You are going to, or you unfortunately you're going to lose loved ones. Well, whose fault is that? That's down to the government. That's another thing. And I think the other thing that's really taught me, what this pandemic has taught me, is how selfish people really are. That they're not taking this. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You keep fading in and out a little, but I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. If you take into consideration that there are still people who are not taking this pandemic seriously, that I'm all right, Jack, I'm healthy, I'm fit, I'm young, or it doesn't affect me, just have a beer, or it's just a bit of a cold. It's shown me how selfish people are. Because they're not taking it seriously. It's like it's one extended holiday for them. Well, people need to take this shit seriously, because people, whether you're in a position, whether you're somebody who thinks that there's some kind of conspiracy, or there's scaremongering within, with across the world, or the fact that, or whether people think that people question how many people have died from the actual COVID-19, or how many people have had underlying problems and COVID-19 has made it serious, or people have died for other reasons outside of that. Whether people think that question has to be answered, because every single day numbers around the world keep going up. So how many people have, and I'm not happy that people have died. I know people have suffered the effects, whether mild or completely serious, with regards to the pandemic. But what are the real numbers? That's what I want to know. And I think
because as Bertram said, he said there's probably 1 million people in the States that are infected, but we don't know. We don't have the numbers. So we don't
Yeah.
have, people are not being tested. That's the problem. So we don't
Well,
know.
this is the problem. Well, this is the problem. You know, we live in a country. I know, you know, other countries can be spoken about as well. But I mean, we live in a country that has the 5th largest economy, and our nurses and doctors and any other health professionals, they're not even tested before people like Prince Charles, Boris Johnson, Matt Hancock, and all of that. How have we come to this? We've come to this because we have a selfish government who doesn't care. All they care about is the economy. The economy is more important. Why do you think banks are open? Because it generates money. The airport, Heathrow Airport, is still open. It generates money. So we've come to this because we have a selfish government. And I think now what people need to do is they need to look at themselves in their behavioral patterns. What they can do differently in order to not spread germs. We have some very nasty people, especially in public transport. We have some really nasty people who don't really adhere to the most basic of basic hygiene. So people need to look at themselves with regards to the fact that COVID-19 apparently can live on the back of your shoes. You know, take your shoes off, wash your hands after you use the toilet, wash your hands after food, wash your hands before food, etc., etc. So, but I mean, going back to the government, I mean, this government, and I've said this many times before, this government will be the death of many people. People have already died, unfortunately, because they've not been tested. When you have somebody who's Trump-like, who doesn't take it seriously in the first place, who knew about it months before, you know, this has been known about since at least December.
Yeah, and that's why I made the point that even in December, when the governments knew about it, what they should have done is in January. You see all the fuss for ventilators and masks, which we're seeing now. That should have happened 2 months ago, but it didn't. It's almost as if, just carry on, everybody, carry on like nothing's happening and just go forward. Some countries like South Korea just shut it down. As soon as they got the first case, they were like, nope, that's it. Close it all off. Done.
Well, this is what I mean about, you know, us being Italy have, you know, they've gone crazy now with their, but, you know, we knew about it. When we knew about it, we should have had a lockdown from December. Then well,
at least January. You
know, if we had enough ventilators, all right, they help to keep people breathing, and if that doesn't work, then okay, unfortunately people have lost their lives. But still, we can't live. You know, this country, the UK, has 70 million people. How the hell is 8,000 ventilators enough? Why have we only got 8 ventilators?
It's mad. It's mad. You know, that's not even enough to. That's not even a quarter of the Emirates Stadium. Think about it in that.
Exactly.
One stadium in the country, it's not enough to fill a quarter of it. That's bad.
Yeah. Look, as I said before, I think cost is sometimes prohibitive for certain appliance applications. Appliances, whatever you want to call these things, tools that you have, cost $25,000 a lot of money for one item. So if you're going to make 30,000, 40,000, first of all, the company building it has to know they can sell these things, and secondly, someone has to be able to afford them. So it's cost prohibitive. Look, I'm not going to knock any country or company who's focused on the economy, because if we don't have the economy, we're going to struggle as people, frankly, to even get resources for ourselves. What I would say, though, there has to be a balance about how you think about all these things holistically. So you got to think about people are dying, and we're here for a short period of time. And if I'm going to die, then at least I want to be able to have some control over that, not some virus to control how that occur. And we want to make sure we preserve life as much as possible, because life is precious, right? We see what's happening in Italy, and it's a first world country, and it's an older population. You see what's happening there, which is devastating, with no end in sight. Now they give these numbers about, well, it decreased this week, it decreased. You don't know. Stop saying the numbers decrease. If you had the whole picture and everyone tested, you could say it's decreased. You can't say it's decreased because the numbers this week were not as bad as last week. Well, who have you tested to get that number? So I'm always getting frustrated with the concept of these numbers are more meaningful than they appear to be, because they're sometimes not. And we have to be careful as people to say, look, we had Ebola, we had MERS, we had SARS, we have all these things which didn't transition into something as worldly as this, with the sort of impact and cascade as wide as this. So people probably got complacent to say, look, we've had it before, it'll affect a few people and we'll move on with life. But I think Wuhan should have been the thing that tells us that this was different. The problem with Wuhan, though, is, and people have to understand this, which is the news was, if it was a democracy that this occurred in, would have gotten information sooner.
Yes,
it was
right.
managed.
Instead of trying to cover it up. Yeah.
Whatever covenant or not, it was being managed. And the problem with being managed is then people weren't, I'm sure that intelligence agency told the government about these things because they have people who know. And people don't want to cascade fear across different, because think about it, in a democracy, if we had someone come in and say, you know what, America's going to be affected, and here's the position, people would lose their minds, right? They start reacting.
Yeah, they would have. Yeah, that's the reason why Boris Johnson a week ago was saying everything's calm. We just need to keep our calm. Now the government and people are coming out saying it's going to be 3 to 6 months. Now they're saying we expect 20,000 dead, at least. Now they're saying that. They didn't say it last week.
Yeah, I think people need to stop saying 3 to 6 months or 2 months. What Dr. Fassi in the US has said, the virus will determine when the timeline is to get back to norm. We have the virus is telling us when it decided when our immune system build up to fight it off, and the virus has had enough, created enough havoc, it will decide a timeline. We will not decide a timeline. So I take there's no credence. There's nothing I take from this whole view of what it's going to be 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. Aspirationally, yes. Logically, I would probably say no, because I don't see you've developed a vaccine. Any measure, you can't even test enough people to figure out what your population infected is. So how are you going to then make emphatic statements about, I said where someone came out, I won't say who, and say, we're coming back by July. We're in April next week. So that's 3 months from now. And we have come up with nothing yet in no part of the world, and maybe in South Korea they're making progress, or in China, to say we're going to get back to normal. It'll take it takes longer to get back to normal than it takes to get to where we are. That's exactly. It's like 2008, right? Because these things build up over time. The economy going to recover it 4 or 5 years later. It's not going to happen. And I'm pessimistic. I would agree I'm pessimistic, because I can envision where we're going to be. And I listen to Bill Gates quite a bit, because the reason I like Bill, not because of his money, because he's a philanthropist and because he's extremely smart. And my views align with him.
He's the one that predicted 5 years ago that this was going to happen. He warned everybody. He warned all the governments. He said the next big attack in the world is going to come from a pandemic, and nobody prepared. Few people listened and are prepared, but that was based off previous experiences. Now, in my opinion, what I think is taught us is how to look after ourselves better. We know what a mess everything is out in the government and the people who make the decisions, but the decisions that we make, I think that's something that is going to change moving on. So for me, what this pandemic has taught us is how we can be more self-sufficient. You know, my wife is out today planting thyme, potatoes, courgettes. She was in the garden doing all of that. And when I looked at her, I was just like, because back home in Jamaica, that's what people do. They live off the land. They got water, coconut. They got everything they need. They got ackee. They got everything they need.
Used to. They have become used to.
Yeah, they've got some of the people have become a bit lazy, but a lot of my uncles and aunties there, they still live off the land. All of the younger people coming up, again, it's pure McDonald's, KFC business.
Exactly.
But the older people, they're still living off the land. So why haven't we really adapted that concept as Generation X? Do you know what I'm saying? The baby boomers are doing it. My mum was telling me on the phone yesterday, I got corn, I got potato, I got and it's like people running down to the street trying to get food. And we've still got people who are planting, grooming their own chickens, getting their own eggs. For me, if I was to answer this question as what has this pandemic taught us, and Vincey says, good idea, what this pandemic has taught us is how to be more self-sufficient with our hygiene and how to be more self-sufficient with our eating habits. And it's going to come down to us being able to ration our food as well. I said this in my video earlier on today. I said, it's not what we're buying or eating. There's going to come a point that we're going to have to ration our food. So these are the things we're going to continue learning because it's about survival.
Well, I think that the countries that don't have a lot of resources probably do better in this environment than those who
Mm,
do. Because a lot of these economies in the Western world are service-oriented economies, not producing a
yeah.
lot. China is a
Mm,
manufacturing engine. Jamaica, for example, should be pretty self-sufficient, at least from a food standpoint. It's not
mm,
because they taking a lot of exports, which is a little bit disappointing. But as you said, they have the environment to grow whatever produce they want to grow and be able to live and
yeah.
self-sustain, which is not happening at the current point in time. And the government have been trying to push that quite a bit even before the situation occur. But I
Mm,
would think also what has been very evident in this whole situation is that we don't live in what we call exclusivity. You can be affected by something, unintentional or intentional, which you have no control over.
yeah.
So my
Yeah. That's
neighbor
right.
could be walking just by me, not doing anything, and infect me, and I could die when they had no malice. It wasn't intentional. So we
Mm,
are interrelated. We are, as we are together in terms of how we operate in this world,
yeah.
we're also very dependent on each other. Just think about it. The
Yeah.
supply chain means that goods have to flow between different places because people are not
Mm,
necessarily sustaining anymore. We have all these things that we need, but I need a phone, or you may need food, or someone need toilet paper. We
mm,
it's been made by different parts. It's distributed. The supply chain is distributed. We have to
yeah.
find a way to survive and live on this planet as human beings in terms of what that means in
Yes.
this definition, versus just thinking
Yeah.
about ourselves and not being caring and not being thoughtful. And be that people are kind of, you know what, that's a casualty. It's a casualty of war
Yeah.
or a casualty of the environment, versus saying, you know what, they're human beings. They have the same physical makeup I do. They want the same thing I want out of life. And therefore, treat them well, treat them how I want to be treated. And let's try to live as one on this planet versus all these boundaries that we have because we are just trying to hoard resources.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. Ebony, you want to come in before we shut this down? Ebony, you still there? Ebony looks like she's frozen up, man. Yeah, so listen, that's really it from us today. Oh, Ebony's starting to move now. Ebony, you're showing life. You're showing life, darling. We're about to shut it down. Did you wanna add something? Did you wanna hold on? Let me just have a quick look here. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, right. What was it?
Yeah, no, we're about to shut it down now. So
Pandemic.
have you got any
Pandemic.
closing? Yeah, we were just closing off on that,
About
so that we're about to shut it down.
what I will say to close off is that people need to wake up and realize that we are living in a time that is unknown. This is concern. This is going to be as bad as the Spanish flu, or it's looking that way anyway. And the Spanish flu killed millions. So
Yeah.
what I would say off is that all we can, if you don't, stay in your yard. Okay, unless you're a key worker, like or unless you're going out for basic essentials, or unless it is an absolute necessity that you have to go out on an emergency basis, stay at home. There's no need um, for your social life. You just think about when you do go about your behavior, what you do, what you can do better. Start adopting it hygienically that you don't think you've done before, but just be people. Try not to have in your house unless it is a necessity. Just think about what you're doing, and just stay safe, and find things that life that you've never discovered before. I do a call if you've got children. I don't have children, but if you have children, you may want to develop a if you haven't already, develop a relationship with them. Ask them about their life. Ask what they think about school. Ask what they think about what's going on. Themselves. Find out about things that you discover things you've never discovered about yourself before. What we have, because we
yeah, you're phasing in and out, Ebony.
we're
losing your audio a bit.
gone.
Okay, excellent. And final words from you, Bertram.
Think about the things that, just think about what we take for granted, and just be grateful that we have them, and just be grateful for the things that we do have without having to go out and spend money.
Agreed. Bertram.
Well, I think my closing remark is twofold. One is, my hope is that at least the governments in the Western world, which others will take their lead from, shut down their societies for a few weeks. We have to get back to normal. Unless we do so, we will not get back to normal. They're going to exacerbate the pain on the working class, frankly, because the people with resources are going to be fine. In New York, they'll move out to the Hamptons. They're in isolation or in their bunkers. They're stacked enough food to serve them for a long time. So I'd say to people is this: hoard food, because you're going to need it, because I don't see how we get out of this without hoarding food and be able to sustain yourself at least for 2, 3, 4 weeks. So please do that. Stay safe. Don't get in any situation where you're going to get hurt or injured, because you go to the hospital. I've been there. Trust me, you don't want to go there. It is not a pretty place to go to get services. Those guys are doing the best they can. But if you're going with a normal illness, you're just going to be overburdening them. You don't want to do that. You want to stay home. As Emily said, you want to take care of yourself. I've tried the hygiene thing. I'm normally an extremely hygienic person, but I'm telling you, I went to the supermarket. I bought like 6 bags, and I came home and I had my nephew wash every bag, disinfect. And I said to myself, this is ridiculous. Disinfect my car, my bags, my shoes. I touch the sink. I got to disinfect the sink before my hand touch it. Which one do I touch first? It gets to be like it's a conundrum which is hard to solve. I do it all, and I walk away saying, really? There got to be a better way to do this. So the only better way to do this is shut it down, and hopefully everyone can stay safe. As Ebony said, stay inside as much as possible. You have to go out to get essentials, but try to reduce the need to go out and get essentials. Try to be good to your neighbors. If they need your help them within 6 feet. Just interesting. Keep that 6 feet distance and help them. But do your best to be a good person. The most important thing, be good, be fair, try to be a good citizen. If you're an immigrant, try to be a good immigrant, whatever you are. But just try to be good, be humane. And hopefully, we'll get through this. And even more importantly, hopefully when we get through this, we'll be better people.
Yeah, and the thing is, for the UK, and I want to speak to the UK as a whole, because we have wanted, and I've got to bring the Brexit thing back, we've wanted our own country, our sovereignty back. And, well, the world just doesn't work like that anymore. When we had our sovereignty, we used to be a company that made things and built things and produced things. And over the years, we've distanced ourselves with many partners. In terms of making cars, a lot of these manufacturers have left the UK because of, the direction that the country has taken to want to come out of Europe. That's not what the world wants. And we just haven't had that message. We no longer produce things in this country. We're more of a country that are into services. Which is the reason why Central London is so important. Because for us, it's about servicing. It's not about production. And that's where we're going to lose that as a nation. And for me, I want us to be able to learn from this situation that we've got ourselves into, where we've neglected our schooling, our housing, our education service, and health service. I just want us to be able to learn from it and then build that back from the ground up, from the foundation up, and just put more care and attention into the things that we've neglected over the last few decades. If we learn that one thing, then for me, we could come out of it in good light. So listen, I just want to say thank you to everybody in the panel. Thank you to guys in the chat, Vincy, Kez, 18, Alex, thanks. Guys, I know it's tough because there's no sports. And I know, you know, we try to talk about Arsenal as much as we can, but there really isn't anything that much evident to grab. I don't know how some Arsenal channels like AFTV and Deluded Gun, I don't know how these guys are still finding Arsenal stuff to talk about, because some of the stuff I see is like transfers just made up of thin air. You know, transfer rumors. What transfer rumors? I see stuff going on every day, and I'm thinking, dude, listen, I text agents, and agents are just like, there is no one talking about transfers anywhere. Where this stuff is coming up from is just to sell papers, because we're in a stage of inactivity. So there is no transfer news. So whatever you're seeing in the papers is not true, guys. It's just made up. But listen, I just want us to get back to some roots. As Bertram said, help people, try to help them in ways where, take for instance, I ran down the road to get my neighbor who can't leave her house because she's with somebody with a poor immune system, and I went to get her some pasta and things like that. Try to help people in that way, because we have to remain a situation where we're self-distancing and keeping ourselves locked in. And as I said on my videos before, short-term pain for long-term gain, and that's how we have to think about it. Don't try and be brave and want to leave your front door. You only make things worse. Don't go and visit your family members. You only make things worse. And if we get off that step and get back to basics, we'll get through this. Yeah. So everybody, thank you in the panel. You know where to find Bertram and Ebony, both on 101. So join the Facebook page. And I never really say this, and I should subscribe to the channel. I never really say that too much, but I should. And thanks for supporting us, guys. And hopefully we'll see you next week, where we don't have coronavirus technology that's killing us at the moment. I can't believe what's happened today. This has definitely been a challenge, but we get through it as always. Peace out, guys. Appreciate it. And right back at you, man. Nice one.